Well, apparently, Norway has the ability to produce what we would call super athletes. So let's see if I can name some of them and how they do it.
What country has the best athletes in the world?
See, let's just answer that straight away. You would think USA, UK, pretty good, Australia. But when you think of that, that's if you're thinking maybe athletics. If you think of football, then you think of Brazil, Argentina, Germany, Spain. Probably on the first top of my head, it would not be Norway. Now, clearly that is what's coming.
The US, China, or maybe France. Those countries usually top the medal table at the Olympics. Well, at least at the Summer Olympics. At the Winter Olympics, it's the tiny country of Norway that dominates.
Tiny? 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 It's bloody huge! It's huge! It literally spans most of Europe if you lowered it down.
But it's not just snow and ice. They have 4 of the best footballers in the world.
Haaland,
and Odegaard in the men's, Hegerberg and Hansen in the women's game. There's Kaspar Ruud in tennis, Victor Hovland in golf, Magnus Carlsen in chess. There are Vikings winning over the hurdles. They are even beating the Kenyans in long-distance events. Triathlon, weightlifting, cycling, heck, they are even winning in beach volleyball. Per capita, Norway is the most successful sporting nation in the world. But why is that?
Wow.
The more you delve into the Norwegian success formula, the more interesting it becomes. It's a story about money, mind-blowing science, and the unique culture.
So I would say straight away that things like, if you look at athletics, for example, it's really difficult to break records now, but it's still happening. And you think, well, how? And it's always like the millimeters, milliseconds. And a lot of it now is to do with science. Science is so important now. So it's all well and good having that physical ability. It then needs the coaching. It then needs the science to just tweak. I'm going to assume there's that. And there's got to be an emphasis on it when you're younger as well.
Welcome to Athletic Interest and how tiny Norway produces the best athletes in the world.
Check out the channel.
The natural reflex is to point out that Norway is super rich and has a lot of resources to put into its sporting infrastructure. But that explains nothing on its own. Ireland has a similar population and GDP, but how many great Irish athletes can you name right now? Besides, Norway has been wealthy for decades, but for most of the time they only had world-class skiers and maybe here and there a player who made it to the Premier League. Today they are everywhere. We are not saying that money isn't a factor. Norway's state fund holds over $1.7 trillion in assets. That's more than 300,000 per Norwegian citizen. The government uses a small portion of the fund's annual returns to support Norway's budget, funding public services like education, healthcare and infrastructure, while preserving the bulk of the wealth for future generations.
In terms of the sports that they're talking about and what they were saying about the Winter Olympics, money probably does help. It probably helps to have the environment too. But money does help because it allows you to get the facilities, the training facilities, to be able to fund players, because athletics, you have to almost fund it yourself. To have that, like I said, going back to the science, you have to have the science and that costs money. So actually money does buy stuff. It really does, whether you like it or not. It does help.
This allows Norway to have better infrastructure, better coaches, better equipment. So, obviously, money is not the issue. But it's also not the sole reason for all the medals. In 2018, Norway made it to the top of the Olympics medal table with only 1/10 of the budget of the British. Maybe they're just spending it wiser. Norway doesn't even invest in sports like skeleton or bobsleigh, as Britain or Germany do, because they say those cost too much money. So if money is not the answer, what is it that makes Norway so successful? It's a paradox. Norway is a very rich country, but they believe in the socialist way of doing things. Success should come from working hard and being together. Families don't need to chase athletic scholarships because college, like healthcare for youth, is free.
Good.
Sports is not seen as a way out of a tough neighborhood. 93% of children grow up playing organized sports. Organized usually means in a local sports club. There are more than 11,000 of those in Norway. This also means that there are a lot of coaches. Most parents work 8 hours a day and are happy to spend their free time with their kids, to volunteer as a coach. That's not possible if you're working 16-hour shifts. The philosophy is a little bit like planning a successful YouTube video. You need a high click rate and retention. So the idea is to get as many kids as possible into sports and keep them playing for as long as possible.
Okay, so that's a great analogy. So please make sure you click on, well, you've obviously clicked on this video if you're watching it, but stay till the end. Stay to the end, exactly the same. You want to keep kids playing sport as long as possible.
The head of elite sports in Norway puts it like this. Big nations are all about selection, getting rid of people. Norway allows children who are late developers whose parents could not support them time to find their potential. This means that despite its relatively small population, the talent pool is huge, because basically everyone is doing sports. It may sound like a small detail, but it's much more than that, because of the so-called relative age effect. There is a great video by Memeable Data that deep dives just into this. We'll link it in the description. For our story, we'll focus on what this means for sports. These are all players in the Spanish First Division, grouped by month of birth. As you can see, there are significantly more players born in the first half of the year.
All I'm going to say is January is a great month for birthdays, okay? It's a great month. It's probably the best month. Just saying. For no particular reason, of course.
That's not a coincidence. In most sports, children are grouped based on their year of birth. So let's say you are born December 31st, 2008, and your best friend is born January the 1st, the same year. Your friend is almost 1 year older than you, but you are still competing against each other. On average, children born earlier in the year are taller, stronger, and faster. Therefore, an older child will have a higher chance of being selected by the coach to play.
I don't think that's true. That's not true. Or not in the UK. Because in the UK, you're done by school year, which is like September is the start. So actually, if you were December, you're technically, well, in this school year, you're older than if you're with someone who's in January. So for us, that's not true. I don't, maybe that's the case in Norway. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's... Yeah, so if you're in the school year and you're November, you are bigger normally than someone who's in January, February, March.
Being selected to play means the child gets more experience, becomes better, and ends up with higher chances of becoming a professional athlete later on. The older player is picked because he is better, and then ends up becoming better with time because he was picked, apparently validating the early decision of the coach. Small advantages at an early stage become bigger advantages later on. Countries like the US or China with a high population don't care. They can simply drag millions of kids through their sports system, and some of them will get through. But if you are a small country like Norway, you need to make sure that you do not waste a single talent simply because they were born late in the year. Norway's success in sports isn't just about talent, it's about smart systems and innovation. Speaking of innovation from Norway, so how does Norway get almost all their kids to do sports? For comparison, in the US only a little more than half of the kids are doing sports. Norway's success is the result of a plan called Children's Rights in Sport, adopted by the National Olympic Committee in 2007. It is a document unlike any other in the world. On 8 pages, it describes the type of experience that every child in Norway must be provided. The vision of idrettsglede, which literally means the joy of sport. The document is about safety, friendship, but also the freedom to choose. Children may decide for themselves how much they would like to train, and can even opt out of games if they just want to practice. Want to transfer clubs in mid-season? Go ahead, no penalty. Teams are not even allowed to keep score until kids are 11. That means...
This really interesting idea, because I know, like talking about girls in secondary school, so kind of, I don't know, maybe from 11 years old to 16 years old, you get a lot of girls who, you know, it's the changes are happening and they find any excuse not to play. And actually there could be a certain sport that... These cats behind me are insane. You're going to have fun watching them. You know, they might find any excuse not to play, but actually it could be a case of, well, actually this sport may be more suitable. In schools in England, for example, the main sports are for boys, rugby, football, cricket, whereas for girls it's probably netball, hockey, those sort of sports. But actually, maybe a girl wants to play volleyball or a boy wants to play badminton. I don't know. So it's having that choice and ability to say, well, this is how much I want to play. And there's not enough choice, I suppose, in England, which is maybe a little bit off-putting. And I get there's people that aren't that sporty, but there are still sports for people that aren't that sporty. I play lawn bowls, so you may not know what that is.
Means no targets or league tables. Coaches are forbidden from telling young athletes how much they weigh to not induce eating disorders. Competition is promoted, but not at the expense of development and the joy of sport for all. Because Norway believes the motivation of children in sport is much more important than that of the parent or coach. Violate the rules, and the federation or club risks losing access to government grants. Children are also not pushed to specialize in a single sport too early. Erling Haaland grew up running, skiing, and playing handball. The idea is to leave the kids alone, because they learn a lot from playing, from not being anxious, from not being counted, from not being judged, and they tend to stay on for longer. And also at a later age, the joy of sports is reinforced. There even is a strict no idiots rule, as the skier Ketil Jansrud explained in 2018. We believe there is no good explanation for why you have to be a jerk to be a good athlete. We just won't have that kind of thing on our team.
Wow. That is so good, because as I play lawn bowls, there are so many people that are so rude and not very nice, and you just think, why? Why do you need to do that? Like, stop being a dick. You think just because you may be a good player, it's like, to be a good player, you have to be a jerk in this sense. And you don't have to be. Sometimes you can be a nice person. You can still be competitive, but don't be a knob. but there is that attitude in a lot of places where people think they have to behave in a certain way to progress, and it shouldn't be the way.
Okay, so everyone is doing sports and there are no idiots. But what happens next? If an athlete is good, they are brought to Olympiatoppen, the Norwegian elite sports center. This is where Norway's sports machine goes into overdrive. Located in Oslo, Olympiatoppen combines cutting-edge sports science with Norway's unique philosophy. Every Olympiatoppen athlete gets a personalized team. Coaches, physiotherapists, nutritionists, and mental performance experts. And if there's one thing that sets Norwegian athletes apart, it's their obsession with data. They don't just train hard, they train smart, especially when it comes to endurance sports. A lot of this can be traced back to a runner named Marius Bakken. Bakken was fast and curious. Over his career, he conducted more than 5,000 lactate tests on himself to measure the intensity of his training. He even traveled to Kenya to test elite runners, searching for the perfect formula. What he discovered was groundbreaking. Most athletes were training too hard during their intervals. Bakken found a sweet spot just below the lactate threshold. Staying in this zone allowed him to train more without overtraining or risking injury. This principle became the foundation of what's now called the Norwegian training method. Bakken laid the groundwork, but it was the Ingebrigtsen brothers who took his ideas and ran with them, and turned theory into world-class results. Today, they monitor every step, every heartbeat, and every drop of sweat. And you can find a lot of those details online. Their training methods aren't hidden away. They are openly discussed, analyzed, and sometimes emulated by athletes around the world. That's also typical Norway, a culture of sharing knowledge. Instead of keeping secrets, they believe that collaboration makes everyone better. So, while other countries might focus on raw talent or massive budgets, Norway proves that curiosity, data, and teamwork can take a small nation to the top of the world.
It just seems like Norwegians are nice. This is what this video is given across. It's like Norwegians are nice people, and they want to help each other. And by helping people, you achieve more. You know, it's not a case of trying to one up over someone else and basically tread on someone else to step over them. It's we can achieve by sharing. And that's nice. That is a nice attitude. That is nice. So you do have to tell me, are Norwegians like this? Just in general, are Norwegians friendly and caring and like to share? And please let me know.
But let's get real. How much of these fancy-sounding strategies actually produce medals? And how much is just a story made up later to make the officials look good? The head of Elite Sports admits it himself. There's always something unpredictable about record-breaking talent, some special, unrepeatable blend of inner drive and external influence that sets an athlete on the path to greatness. But he argues that Norway has created the right conditions for that thunderclap to strike. And maybe this isn't just about medals. Norway's methods are redefining how we think about talent, teamwork, and what it takes to excel in a competitive world.
Fascinating. I basically got from that, don't be a knob, don't be a dick, and things will be good. That's fascinating. And like I said, I like the whole thing of it's because the population's lower and Norway's relatively rich. It's not about shunning people. It's not about saying you're not good enough. It's using that money to help everyone. It's encouraging. It's not excluding. And that's really nice because the whole thing, it's like at school. Who got picked last? Well, there's a song, getting picked last in gym class. And it's not a nice feeling. And so I don't know how that translates to Norwegian kind of sports and school and things. But from this video, it's making it sound like actually it's understanding when people are ready, when children are ready and adults are ready. It's trying to focus on, okay, we want you to be active. We want you to actively find the sport that you are best at or that you are good at or what you enjoy. And it's being open to multiple different sports rather than in the UK where it's, at school, for example, you're focused on only really two, like I said, football and rugby and cricket for boys, netball, hockey for girls. And it's very restrictive. And the only way of doing other stuff is, I don't know, you may watch it on TV or I don't know that your parents or grandparents may play and therefore they get you involved in a more obscure sport like lawn bowls. Really, really interesting. And I'd like to know if from Norwegian viewers, how accurate do you think this is? If there's anything you can elaborate on. Is there any videos that you suggest that I watch? If there is, links down in the comments, please. And make sure you like and subscribe. That is the easiest thing to do. We're going to explore loads more on Norway for sure. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you next time.